Welcome to our channel. You might know Walt Disney World as the happiest place on Earth, bursting with magical moments and unforgettable characters. But look closer, and you'll discover a realm of lesser-known tales, filled with hidden tunnels, controversial policies, and long-abandoned areas that only a few have glimpsed. Today, we're peeling back the curtain to uncover the curious, sometimes eerie details that shape this iconic destination. From cloak-and-dagger land deals to peculiar dress codes, get ready to see a side of Disney World you never knew existed. Let's start at the beginning with an idea that transformed the entertainment landscape forever. In 1955, Disneyland had just opened in California, becoming an overnight sensation that captured the imagination of families across the country. Walt Disney's vision of a clean, family-friendly park where stories come to life is unlike anything the world has seen. But before long, a major issue pops up. Most of Disneyland's visitors are traveling from the western part of the United States, even though a whopping 75% of the U.S. population lives east of the Mississippi River. Rather than simply accepting fewer visitors from the rest of the country, Walt sees an opportunity. He realizes that to truly share the magic, he needs to build a bigger, bolder destination closer to those millions of potential guests. However, building a second park isn't just about duplicating Disneyland on the opposite coast. Walt wants to create an entirely new experience, something more ambitious than anyone could imagine. He's not just thinking about a few extra rides or a slightly larger property. He envisions an entire world of entertainment and innovation. Behind the scenes, Walt and his team embark on what they secretly call the Florida Project, buying land around Central Florida's Bay Lake. They do it under a maze of dummy corporations to avoid attention and skyrocketing real estate prices. Rumors swirl that maybe NASA, Ford, or even Howard Hughes is snatching up all that swampy acreage. It isn't until 1965 that Walt finally reveals his plans, announcing what he calls the greatest attraction in the history of Florida. But even then, the scope of his dream goes far beyond building a replica of Disneyland. Walt hopes to transform acres of Florida marsh into a living, breathing world where fantasy blends seamlessly with reality, a place guests can explore, stay in themed resorts, and immerse themselves in round-the-clock magic. Secrecy and painstaking detail go into every step of the planning. The right land, the right infrastructure, and just the right touch of imagination to keep everything under wraps until he's ready to show the world. Tragically, Walt Disney never sees his grand idea fully realized. He passes away in December 1966, leaving the unfinished dream in his brother Roy's hands. Determined to honor Walt's vision, Roy postpones his retirement to oversee construction, ultimately naming it Walt Disney World so nobody forgets the man behind the magic. By the time the park opened in 1971, it's clear that Walt's original hunch was spot on. Families from the eastern U.S. and eventually the entire globe flock to Florida, eager to experience this new realm that promises something different from any other vacation spot on Earth. In the end, the origins of Walt Disney World stand as a testament to Walt's ability to look beyond the boundaries of a single park. He took a challenge, distance, and turned it into the catalyst for inventing a whole new world of enchantment and storytelling. From Dummyland purchases to an ever-expanding dream, the foundation of Walt Disney World is nothing less than a masterclass in ambition, secrecy, and the power of imagination. In the mid-1960s, Walt Disney began what would come to be known as the Florida Project. He started buying up land in Central Florida, specifically around Bay Lake. However, Disney didn't want to tip his hand too soon. To avoid attracting attention and driving up land prices, He used a series of dummy corporations to make these purchases. The cloak-and-dagger operation was so secretive that even his own employees didn't know what was going on. Rumors started to spread. Who was buying all of this land? People speculated it might be NASA, Ford, the Rockefellers, or even the reclusive billionaire Howard Hughes. Reporters were relentless in their pursuit of the truth, and Walt Disney was forced to deny any involvement. Unfortunately, Disney wasn't the best actor, and his denials only fueled the speculation. Finally, in 1965, Disney was ready to unveil his grand plan. With journalists breathing down his neck, he revealed the details of what he called the greatest attraction in the history of Florida. This was going to be more than just a theme park. It was going to be an entire world of its own, a place where the lines between reality and fantasy would blur in the most delightful ways. Sadly, Walt Disney didn't live to see his vision fully realized. On December 15, 1966, Disney passed away from lung cancer, leaving behind a dream that would have to be brought to life without him. His brother, Roy Disney, who had been planning to retire, made the decision to stay on and oversee the completion of Walt Disney World. Although Roy would also pass away just 3 months after the park's grand opening, the legacy of the Disney brothers lives on in every corner of the park. One of the most intriguing aspects of Disney World is the infamous tunnel network. You've probably heard about it. There's a vast network of tunnels underneath the Magic Kingdom, allowing cast members to move from one area of the park to another without being seen by guests. It's a genius idea when you think about it. After all, you wouldn't want a cast member dressed as Mickey Mouse walking through Frontierland on their way to Tomorrowland, right? But here's the thing, those tunnels aren't actually underground. Florida has a high water table, which makes it nearly impossible to dig basements or tunnels of any significant depth. So what Disney did was create the tunnel network at ground level and build the Magic Kingdom on top of it. That's right. When you're strolling down Main Street, USA, you're actually on the second floor of the park. Below your feet is a world of hidden corridors, dressing rooms, and logistical operations that keep the magic running smoothly above. Walt Disney's vision didn't stop at theme parks. One of his most ambitious projects was EPCOT, short for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. Today, EPCOT is one of the 4 main theme parks at Walt Disney World, known for its celebration of technology, innovation, and international culture. But what EPCOT is now is a far cry from what Walt originally envisioned. Before the Epcot Center, there was Epcot the city. Walt Disney didn't just want to build a park, he wanted to create a utopian community, a modernist and futurist city that would serve as a model for how people could live in harmony with technology and with each other. This was to be a fully functional city home to 20,000 residents, complete with a city center, residential areas, transportation systems, schools, and even a greenbelt. Here's the kicker. Residents wouldn't own the land or their homes. Instead, they'd live in a totalitarian company town where Disney had the final say on everything. Everyone would be employed by Disney, either at the Magic Kingdom or one of the other attractions, and there would be no retirement. Everyone had to work. In return, they'd get to live in the so-called community of tomorrow. Walt Disney was passionate about his Epcot project, and according to his brother Roy, he was working on the plans from his hospital bed just days before his passing. But after Walt's death, the Disney board wasn't enthusiastic about the idea. The prospect of a totalitarian surveillance state where residents had no voting rights and no control over their own lives didn't sit well with board members or the public. In some ways, the spirit of Walt's Epcot project lives on in today's Epcot theme park, but it also found a partial home in another project, Celebration Florida. Celebration was Disney's attempt to create a planned community that, while far from Walt's utopian vision, still carried some of the elements he had imagined. Established around the year 2000, Celebration has its own set of unique rules and regulations, many of which reflect Disney's obsession with order and control. Today, Celebration is home to over 11,000 residents, and it's a far cry from the futuristic city Walt had dreamed of. There are still hints of his influence in the way the town is run. The town's aesthetic and architectural design are meticulously controlled, and there is a strong emphasis on community spirit. However, much like the original EPCOT concept, there's a certain level of control that's hard to ignore. Speaking of control, let's talk about Disney's obsession with maintaining the perfect appearance for its cast members. The integrity of the costumes worn by Disney employees or cast members is something the company takes very seriously, perhaps too seriously. Take, for instance, the infamous regulation underwear rule. Originally designed to prevent any hint of undergarment lines from showing through costumes, it quickly evolved into a rigid policy demanding that all cast members wear standardized park-issued undergarments. Disney wanted to ensure that the silhouette of every costume was pristine, preserving the illusion that the characters had just stepped out of a storybook. While the intention might have been to uphold a top-tier aesthetic, the practical implications were far less magical, because these undergarments weren't just handed out individually, they were shared. Yes, you heard correctly, communal underwear. As costumes, including the specially approved undergarments, moved from one cast member to another between shifts, multiple employees ended up wearing the same sets. Unsurprisingly, this practice raised more than a few eyebrows and was a constant topic of complaint among staff. The rumor mill churned out its own explanation. A scabies outbreak had eventually forced Disney to rethink its policy. Although that makes for an attention-grabbing headline, many believe the real tipping point was pressure from the workers' union, which advocated fiercely for better hygiene and personal comfort. So why such a stringent policy in the first place? Disney has always prided itself on delivering a seamless, immersive experience. Every detail, from the color of a princess's gown to the cut of a mascot's outfit, aims to protect the illusion for guests, so that a child's vision of Mickey or Cinderella stays picture perfect. Over time, though, this pursuit of visual consistency crossed into territory that could be considered extreme. By the late 1990s, as Disney expanded globally and welcomed even more cast members, enforcing these strict guidelines became increasingly complicated, not to mention controversial. By 2001, Disney finally abandoned communal underwear, marking the end of one of its most peculiar policies. The company shifted to individual size-specific undergarments that cast members could check out and return in a more controlled manner, at least ensuring each person had fresh, sanitized items. While most visitors had no idea this policy ever existed, it's a fascinating glimpse into how far Disney was willing to go to uphold the perfect show. Ultimately, these strict costume policies highlight a larger theme running through the park's history, a relentless drive for consistency and immersion. Disney has always been about preserving the magic down to the last detail, sometimes at the expense of practicality or personal comfort. And while most of these behind-the-scenes rules remain well out of the public eye, they're a testament to Disney's unwavering commitment to its brand. For cast members, it's part of the job description. For guests, it's part of the enchanting atmosphere, albeit one built on surprising guidelines you'd never expect to find in the happiest place on earth. Now for a lighter turn. Imagine this. Of all the Disney characters who might run for President of the United States, who would you pick? Mickey Mouse? Donald Duck? In 1968, Disneyland staged a publicity stunt that involved none other than Winnie the Pooh running for president. Yes, the lovable, honey-obsessed bear from the 100-Acre Wood threw his hat into the ring. It was all in good fun, a cute, one-off event meant to entertain guests, but Pooh wasn't done with his political aspirations. In 1972, he ran for president again, this time at Walt Disney World. The campaign included rallies, pamphlets, and a promise to put honey in every pot. As lighthearted as it was, it's still surreal to think of Pooh Bear entering the political arena, even as a joke. You might think of Disney World as a place suspended in time, where fairy tales reign and everyday worries magically evaporate. But the truth is, even this kingdom of enchantment has had its fair share of real-world drama. Believe it or not, its brushes with politics and pop culture reach well beyond the lighthearted spectacle of a honey-loving bear's presidential campaign. Picture the year 1973, the Watergate scandal dominating news headlines, and President Richard Nixon stepping up to a podium at Disney's contemporary resort. Most people expected just another press conference, until Nixon famously blurted, "I am not a crook." Those 5 words, uttered in the midst of swirling controversy, quickly became a defining statement of his presidency. It's a jarring contrast, the urgency of national politics set against a backdrop of monorails and mouse ears. And yet, that's exactly what happened, right in the heart of the most magical place on Earth. Today, historians and casual Disney fans alike still point to that press conference as a testament to the park's unexpected role in shaping the public conversation. But political intrigue isn't the only real-world storyline woven into Disney World's history. Flash forward to December 29, 1974, at the Polynesian Village Resort. John Lennon, one of the 4 Beatles who had collectively redefined modern music and pop culture, signed the paperwork to formally disband the band right on Disney property. Just imagine, a group that revolutionized rock and roll and influenced an entire generation ended their journey amidst palm trees, faux island decor, and families on vacation. It's both poetic and startling, proof that life-changing decisions can happen even in places designed to be timeless escapes. What makes these events so fascinating is the stark contrast between Disney World's carefully curated aura and the gritty realities intruding from the outside world. On one hand, you've got families riding It's a Small World, fully immersed in whimsical sets and cheerful music. On the other, you've got a sitting U.S. president defending himself against scandal and a musical legend signing documents that mark the end of a cultural phenomenon. These moments underscore a larger truth. No matter how much Disney strives to create a bubble of fantasy, real life has a way of crossing the drawbridge. Disney World isn't immune to tragedy. Over the years, there have been several accidents and incidents that remind us even a carefully controlled environment can't eliminate risk. When you think of Disney World, images of Cinderella Castle, colorful parades, and whimsical rides usually come to mind. Yet even a destination as meticulously crafted as this is not without its somber chapters. Over the decades, a handful of accidents and tragedies have shaken the park's illusion of total safety, proving that no level of control can entirely shield against real-world risks. One of the most striking examples is River Country, Disney's inaugural water park, opened in 1976. Advertised as a good old-fashioned swimming hole, it offered a laid-back, rustic setting that felt worlds away from the futuristic vibe of other Disney attractions. Families splashed around in murky yet carefully managed waters, fully embracing the park's charming back-to-nature aesthetic. That laid-back atmosphere, however, masked a hidden danger. In 1980, the tragic death of an 11-year-old boy brought River Country's risks to the forefront. He had contracted a brain infection caused by Naegleria fowleri, a microscopic amoeba found in warm freshwater. Although such infections are very rare, they're almost always fatal, and the incident shattered the carefree image river country had cultivated. While Disney immediately adjusted its water filtration system in an attempt to make the park safer, attendance began to dip as word of the tragedy spread. Over the years, the combination of mounting safety concerns and declining visitor numbers spelled doom for river country. Eventually, in 2001, Disney closed it for good. Though overshadowed by more modern water parks and expansions, River Country's story lingers as a reminder that even Disney's thorough planning can't fully conquer Mother Nature. Fast forward to 1985, and a very different kind of crisis hit the resort. A short circuit caused a fire on a monorail traveling between EPCOT and the Transportation and Ticket Center. In a system that prides itself on efficiency and futuristic appeal, no one expected to smell smoke, let alone see flames. Passengers found themselves scrambling to kick out the windows and climb onto the roof to escape the growing hazard inside. It's nothing short of miraculous that nobody lost their life, but the incident laid bare some glaring oversights. Emergency protocols were not up to the task, and the event sparked criticism about how well prepared Disney was to handle unexpected disasters. In the aftermath, Disney took steps to upgrade the monorail's fire safety systems, introducing better fire suppression and more rigorous emergency procedures. While improvements were put in place, the memory of that day left a lasting impression, reminding both guests and cast members that even sleek, state-of-the-art attractions can harbor hidden vulnerabilities. A year before the monorail fire, another tragedy underscored the limits of Disney's control over its environment. In 1984, a small private plane crashed into the EPCOT parking lot, claiming the lives of 3 out of the 5 people on board. The family had been flying over Disney World, presumably to enjoy a bird's-eye view of the iconic resort. Mechanical trouble forced an emergency landing, but fate intervened before they could reach the runway. The crash site, just steps from a place renowned for escapism, stood in heartbreaking contrast to the carefree atmosphere nearby. This incident, more than any other, underscored a sobering reality. While Disney can regulate nearly every inch of its property, from guest pathways to parking spots, it cannot fend off the unforeseen challenges posed by the outside world. The plane crash was a stark reminder that no matter how carefully Disney constructs its protective bubble, real life sometimes finds a way to penetrate even the most magical borders. Ultimately, these tragedies highlight the delicate balancing act Disney continually faces. The resort works tirelessly to maintain an atmosphere where worries are left at the gates, yet each accident pulls back the curtain, revealing that accidents can happen anywhere, even in a place designed to be the embodiment of joy. Whether it's a hidden amoeba in a beloved water park, a monorail fire ignited by a faulty circuit, or a plane descending out of the sky, each incident underscores Disney's ongoing struggle to preserve its enchanting facade while contending with the unpredictability of the real world. While most guests will never witness or even hear about these darker moments, they are part of Disney World's complex tapestry, proof that behind every whimsical ride and smiling character lies a place where genuine history has unfolded, sometimes with heartbreaking consequences. They serve as a somber yet crucial reminder that even the happiest place on earth cannot escape the challenges that come with being, at the end of the day, part of the real one. Beyond these tragedies, there are parts of Disney World that have simply faded into obscurity, attractions, and areas left to be reclaimed by nature. Discovery Island, originally called Treasure Island, was once a thriving wildlife attraction in Bay Lake, home to hundreds of exotic birds and other animals. Opened in 1974, it was popular for a time, but as Disney World expanded, Discovery Island was overshadowed by newer, bigger attractions, most notably Animal Kingdom. Attendance declined, and Disney closed Discovery Island in 1999. Today, the island remains abandoned, its structures slowly overtaken by Florida's lush vegetation. Few have seen it since it closed, but those who have visited describe it as eerie and fascinating, a ghost town in the middle of the most magical place on Earth. River Country, as mentioned, was also left to deteriorate after closing. In the years that followed, strange reports surfaced. According to some accounts, the park's closing theme music continued to play on a loop for years, echoing through the empty, overgrown landscape. Lights would flicker on and off at random, as if the park itself had a life of its own. Combined with its dark history, these stories made River Country one of the most infamous and unsettling places in all of Disney World. Disney also has a playful side that sometimes goes too far. In 1996, to celebrate Disney World's 25th anniversary, Cinderella Castle underwent a dramatic and controversial makeover. The iconic castle was transformed into a giant pink birthday cake, complete with inflatable candy decorations and candles. Some visitors loved the whimsical transformation, but many were less thrilled, especially couples who had planned on wedding photos in front of the classic castle. Dubbed the Cake Castle, it was often compared to a piece of bubble gum or a Pepto-Bismol nightmare. While it remains one of the most memorable moments in Disney World history, it also proved that not every bold idea lands well with guests. A similar stunt happened in 2004 to celebrate the opening of Stitch's Great Escape. The mischievous alien took over the castle overnight, draping it in toilet paper and graffiti reading, "Stitch is King." It was intended as a humorous stunt, but many guests were horrified to see the beloved castle defaced. If there's one piece of advice for Disney's Imagineers, it might be, maybe don't mess with Cinderella Castle. Disney World is built on the idea of creating magic, bringing joy and wonder to people of all ages. But there's a darker side to that magic that isn't always visible to casual visitors. One of the most chilling examples occurred in 2016, just hours before carrying out the horrific attack at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. The shooter Omar Mateen visited Disney Springs. Investigators later revealed that Mateen had considered targeting Disney World first, ultimately choosing Pulse because it was smaller and had easier access. It's disturbing to think that one of the deadliest mass shootings in U.S. history could have happened at the most magical place on Earth. Then there's the phenomenon of guests attempting to scatter the ashes of their loved ones in the park. For some, Disney World is such a significant part of life that they want it to be their final resting place. Of course, Disney has a strict policy against this. When cast members suspect someone is scattering ashes, they enact Code A for ashes, quickly clean the area, and dispose of the remains. It's hardly the peaceful resting place guests might imagine, but Disney's priority is maintaining cleanliness and safety for all. Speaking of codes, Disney has a whole slew of them, each designed to keep the magic intact without alarming guests. The wildest one, Code H, the H stands for honey. And which character famously loves honey? Winnie the Pooh, of course. So Code H means someone has had an accident of the sort no one wants to deal with. If you ever overhear Code H on the radio, watch your step. But there are other codes as well. Code U is used for incidents involving urination. Maybe a toddler who couldn't make it to the restroom in time, or a guest who got a little too excited by the magic. Then there's Code Vi, which signals a cleanup for vomit. Unsurprising when you think of all the dizzying rides, swirling teacups, and possibly too much cotton candy. And there you have it. A journey through the fascinating and sometimes downright bizarre secrets woven into Disney World's history. This beloved resort may be known for its sparkling parades and timeless stories, but behind the friendly smiles and fairy tale facades lies a complex tapestry of covert operations, odd policies, and unforgettable events. Whether you're a die-hard Disney fan or just curious about what really happens beyond the attractions, these little-known facts remind us that even in the most magical places, reality can be stranger than fiction. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more adventures into the hidden corners of our world.